What's up, everybody? It's Harry Tidwell here with a special edition of the Shot Clock Sports Podcast. Today we're talking some Clifton Park Rec hoops. I got Nick Gilder, I got Ben Coons here, two faces of the league, and pretty much we're just going to be talking about start of the postseason and how the award races are looking. Those are going to be announced next week. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course.
Thank you.
All right, so let's start with award races. You've got 7 awards this year: Rookie of the Year, Clutch Player of the Year, Sixth Man, Most Improved, TPOY, Coach of the Year, and MVP. I'll be listing the candidates as we go along. I'm sure you guys already know them. But starting with Rookie of the Year, this year includes 1 sophomore and 2 juniors. Sophomore, someone I know very well, of course, Teddy Tidwell, 19.9 points per game, 4.7 rebounds, 3.7 assists. Then 2 other candidates, you got Eli Prenderville averaging 10 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, and Carter Toth averaging 14 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 steals per game. Guys, what do we make of this race? It's a pretty interesting one this year.
So, overall, I think Teddy is the obvious pick here. His real offensive capability and his scoring and his playmaking have really solidified this. As he said, his points per game, his assists per game, he can get those boards when needed. Really makes him a true pick. With Eli, he's not doing that scoring output you see from the other 2, but what he does good in is in his defense, in that zone that Frank runs. I think he's averaging like 3 blocks a game, which is huge. With Carter, he's a great off the bench. He can score whenever you need him. He's really quick on those fast breaks. He can get it done. But my true pick would be Teddy.
You know, I'd have to agree with Nick. He polled well in your initial voting. I mean, he's the all-around player. Defense maybe not as good as Prendy, but he's a superstar at this point for his own team. He's the support guy. He's the star. He scores. He does everything for them. The other 2, I don't want to call them role players, but they're definitely not the number 1 guys in their own squads. So Teddy's got my vote.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with you guys here in a non-biased way. It kind of reminds me of that 2017-2018 NBA Rookie of the Year race where you had Ben Simmons going against a guy like Donovan Mitchell, where Teddy's the true rookie here. I mean, he's the sophomore. The other 2 guys, a little bit older, a little bit stronger, a little bit bigger. And that's obviously helped them on the defensive side of things. But Teddy's offensive output, I think, is just what puts him ahead of those other guys. And you look at a guy like Prendy, I do think he's a little bit of a product of the system with that zone Frank's been running. I mean, props to him, he fits the system great. But with that zone, he's able to really count up those defensive stats. So we'll go all around Teddy there. We'll be hearing more about that next week. Let's move over to the Clutch Player of the Year. Your finalists, you got Damian Ewing, Jason Sapienza, and Dylan Getter. I won't really include the stats, their season stats here, because I mean, it's based off their late game performances, but both have had very notable performances. Getter has beaten both in 2 close games, but what do you guys make of this?
So, funny you say that. Because you say that, I'm going to take Getter. You know, I think Sap has the most points in the clutch, but he's not getting the job done. We'll talk about this later. But the Panthers are not getting it done. And even though the Danes might not be getting it done either, it's Getter's scoring in the stretch that is taking them to how many wins they have.
I mean, these 3, they're great. They're all clutch players to their own respects. We've seen it throughout the years. Dame, we know, led that great 25-point comeback against the Tar Heels. But I have to agree with Nick. Dylan Getter's done some things in close games that just carry his team further and further. And they haven't been great all year, but neither have some of these other 2 teams. They've hit their own bumps. But Dylan seems to be consistent. When they hit a bump, they can rely on him, even if the rest of the team doesn't click.
Yeah, I'm going to agree again with you guys here. I know it probably sounds boring at this point. We're all going the same way. But and you look at the other guys. Damian's got Pubon. Sapienza's got Ferg. Getter, when it's coming down the stretch, she's the guy with the ball all the time. And, most of these teams haven't had, and the Buckeyes had a good year. The Panthers and Danes haven't had great seasons. What Getter has done while he hasn't been injured, has provided so many more wins to this Danes team. It set them up in a pretty good position. They got that top seed in the play-in tournament. They'll be going up against you, Ben. We'll get more into that later. And I was just talking earlier, I mean, as a player on the Saints, I'm a little scared of running into this get-her-in Danes team. But yeah, again, more on that later. So let's head over to Sixth Man of the Year now. You got a familiar candidate in Damian Ewing. 6 bench starts, averaging 14.4 points per game. Anthony Ragazzo of the Huskies, 6 bench starts, 15.5 points per game. And Saints' very own Brett Siska with 8 bench starts, but only 9.5 points per game. Nick, we'll start with you again.
So, this may not seem like the right pick, but I'm going to take Anthony Ragazzo. Here's why. He has such a great scoring output from a team that is so ball dominant. Obviously, you have Pepsic, you have Terry. These two need the ball to score, and they can score. I'm not saying they can't. They score really efficiently, but they need the ball to score. Ragazzo is one of those guys where you can just catch and shoot over and over again, and that is what he's doing. He's doing it on such great output.
You know, I love Tony. I love Siska, but I played with Dame last year, and we started him off the bench a bunch too. And I mean, having that option coming off the bench after your stars just played 5 great minutes, he does it well. He fits that system of coming off the bench. I voted for him. I mean, I feel like the other two have great cases, but Dame this year has just been something that team is needed coming off the bench.
Yeah, I mean, I think all three have a very interesting case here. Damian, like you said, is kind of fills that bench role very well. When he comes in for Poubon, they don't miss a beat. You know, he can provide that offensive output the same way Poubon can. Ragazzo, like Gilder said, just adds so much off the ball for a team like the Huskies with Terry and Heptig. And then Brett Siska, you know, I think he just kind of embodies that 6th man and that he's able to keep pace very well. You know, he's in control of the floor. And he's never trying to do too much. He's not trying to be the star. He's trying to be the 6th man. I think he does that best out of the people on this list. Like he when I think of 6th man, I think of Brett. But I think I will give my vote to Damian for the same reason Ben did. I mean, yeah, what the kid does off the bench for this team has been crucial. And he could play in the starting lineup, though, but playing him off the bench has been a strategy by Coach Poubon for a large part of this season, and it's worked fairly well. So, while this is an interesting race also, I think I'm on the side with Damian here, but I think all three have their respective reasons to win it. Now we're going to head over to most improved player. You got Hollis Haverly, 6 points per game, 10 rebounds, 1.2 steals. Oliver Mudane, 5 points per game, 3.8 rebounds, and shooting 49%. And then Johnny Bean, 8 points per game, 6 rebounds, and 1.5 assists.
So, I'm going to take Hollis on this one. I've always called him the GOAT, the hustle player, the man. He's just a tank. As you said, 10 rebounds. Wow. He really gets in there. He really gets the boards. Even though his scoring might not be the greatest, he can get in there and he can get boards. I know Oliver is shooting at a great percentage, but I haven't seen him that much, and I haven't seen him play that much, and I can't really say from experience. Johnny Bean, his attendance has been really shaky. I know he's been struggling with injuries and such, and personal expenditures, I should say. But for this case, I'm gonna take my boy, the dog, Hollis Avery.
You know, I have to agree with Nick here. Hollis, I mean, if we throw it back to the first 3 weeks, statistically he was ranked number 1 in the league, which was quite the start for Hollis. I mean, I did not expect that from him. He fills a role in that team of being the morale guy almost. They rally around him. I mean, he's a good player. He does everything for them. If he could shoot threes, they'd have him shoot threes, and he'd do everything. But I think Hollis is definitely the most improved player. I love what I see out of him every game. Definitely hustles a lot. So.
Yeah, I think I make this a 2-man race pretty quickly between Bean and Hollis. No disrespect to Oliver, but yeah, I feel like his stats don't exactly compare to the other guys. I'm sure he's shooting efficiently, but technically the other guys, he just comes off a little bit weaker. I think I am going to give the edge to Hollis, just for the mentality. I know we've mentioned that he's really filled a void on the Wildcats this year. While it hasn't been a great season, he's been a very surprising spotlight. You got to think you can credit some of him playing better to having pieces around him kind of open up the court and give him more opportunity. Where Hollis has been the biggest bright spot on the Wildcats and has changed the outcome of multiple games. And he has the stats for it. I mean, 6 points per game is nothing to laugh about with 10 rebounds. So I'll give my vote to Hollis as well. Heading over to DPOY. All right, Defensive Player of the Year. We got John Thompson, averaging outstanding 7.5 blocks per game, paired with 21 rebounds and 3 steals. Prenderville makes another appearance, averaging 4 blocks, 11 rebounds, and 1 steal. Then you got Ubon averaging 10.5 rebounds, 1.5 blocks, 4.5 steals. Let's get started with this one.
So I think it's easy. It's obviously John. Look at the stats. Look at the presence in the paint. He's just always there, especially in that zone they run. I know they have another great season, but John has been the star of their season.
You know, I drafted him knowing we were running the zone. I knew that in the middle, he's the best center in the league. There was nobody going to be able to block like he does. Nobody was going to be able to rebound like he does. And I mean, throughout the season, he's been behind. People have kind of written him off here and there, but I mean, when you watch it firsthand, you just see his impact on the game. Those blocks and those rebounds, they keep that team in games. They may have lost a bunch of games this season, but they've definitely been close in almost every one they've played except for a few. I think a lot of that is to John. I mean, he eliminates things on the court so that this team can get back in those games. I think Defensive Player of the Year, even though the other two had great seasons, they were never as consistent, and John kept it up almost the whole year. I think he's got it in the bag this year.
Yeah, I think, once again, you can kind of put this between Prendy and Thompson. No disrespect to Pubon, but I just don't think he compares to the other guys. And sure, these two guys do benefit off that zone defense that their teams have been running. But yeah, I think I got to give it to John. I mean, look at these stats. I mean, 7.5 blocks with 21 rebounds is unheard of in the league. I mean, I know I've heard some noise about some possible stat padding by the Bruins, but that's a segment for another day. But I think you can't go against what John's putting up this season. So there you go. John's our pick. Second to last, and where we got for you, Coach of the Year. 3 finalists. You got Coach Poublon, assisted by Coach Anderson of the Buckeyes. That's a team averaging 67.7 points per game, 3rd in the league, and they finished with a 7-5 record with some big wins against teams like my Saints and the Tar Heels earlier in the season. Then you got Coach Terry, leading the league's best offense, averaging 72.3 points per game. They finished 9-3, 3rd place in the standings. And Coach Tidwell, again, someone I know very well, 72nd place in points per game, 71.1. Best record out of the 3 at 10-2, as the Saints finished as the 2 seed. With their only losses coming to the Buckeyes and Orange. Let me hear your guys' picks.
Being coached by Poublon in previous seasons, I think he's a great coach. Even looking at this season, he's taken this team, on paper, it doesn't look good at all. You got 3 stars being Ewing, Ofer, and Poublon, and the rest are just kind of role players. But what he's done for this team, he's taken those role players and he's turned them into more than role players, I guess you could say. He's told them their purpose, and they do that purpose well. With the other 2 coaches, they have the talent. That's why they look so good on paper. They have the talent to be a great team.
I think it's a hard debate this year. I think all 3 of them have led their teams to great places. I would vote for Poobah and Anderson this year. Both of them have shown that this team is ready to fight. They've gotten like Nick said, this roster was not projected high at the start of the season. At the draft table, they had some delays in their picks and when they got to pick players, so they didn't get the top tier talent. But I mean, they've done a lot with their roster compared to some of the other teams in similar situations. I'm not calling them out, but the Panthers and the Danes had similar roster constructions this year, and both didn't finish as well. They definitely showed flashes, but this team has been pretty consistent with how the roster has performed all season.
Yeah, once again, I think you got three different cases for each guy. Terry, I think, is best at letting the boys play. You know, he knows he's got a talented team. He's going to put them out there, let them do their thing. He's really good at that. Rubon Anderson, yeah, that's a team that is interesting because they obviously don't have a bunch of, sure they have an MVP candidate in Brady Poubon, but they don't have a bunch of height, and they don't have the most talent in the league. But they've been able to pull off some big wins. And you see Coach Poubon is scouting out other games. He's really dedicated to that coaching mentality. And Coach Tidwell, you know, speaking on behalf of the Saints, unmatched team morale. I mean, the way this team gets along with each other and gels, I think has been crucial to our success. You know, Coach Tidwell's at the heart of that. You know, he hypes us up before the games, gets us going, but without too much stress, and he's good at using those timeouts. He never loses a timeout on the board. So yeah, it's a toss-up. Honestly, I can see it going anyway. I do think Poubon will win it. You know, he really does embody what it means to be a coach of the year with all that scouting he's been doing. But in favor of the Saints, you know, I think Coach Tibbs deserves it. 10-2 record, and I mean, you gotta look at the Saints. We're kind of underrated to start the year, 7th in the power rankings, I believe. I don't know who made those, but we've proved a lot of people wrong this year. Sure, the talent on the roster has definitely overachieved, but I think some of that is just credit to coaching. Last award of the episode, MVP. You got your three finalists: Jason Sapienza of the Panthers, 30.1 points per game. I don't think anyone's averaged more than that with the amount of games that Sapienza's played. He's got 6 rebounds per game and 4.6 assists per game. Then you got Poubon of the Buckeyes, 27.7 points per game, 10.5 rebounds per game, and 4.1 assists per game. And finally, the Saint himself, Jacob Tomaszewski, 29.7 points per game, 8.4 rebounds, and 2 steals per game. Let's hear what you guys got.
I think this pick's pretty obvious. I think it has to be J-Sap. I might be a little biased being a teammate of his, but he just had the highest scoring game. I think it was 55 points. So that just solidifies my pick for him. Even though the Panthers haven't gotten it done so far, I think he has been the big focus. Obviously coming off another great year in last year. I think he was also like an MVP candidate last year too. Very high up there anyway. But I really think he can get the award, and we'll see.
Who's your third place? Mine's second place, Gilder.
I think my second would have to be Jacob, obviously. Scoring at such a high rate, he's everywhere. He can do anything. Brady, you know, he's the passer himself. He's the flashy passer. He'll get your teammates involved. But I guess the teammates just aren't putting up those shots that he's given them, as his assist count kind of low this year.
You know, I'm going to take a different approach from Nick here. I'm going with Brady. I think that team has been built around one player, and that player is Brady Poubon. He dishes it well. Now, they may not hit as many shots as they might have last year with Dylan and Jason on the roster and some other talent, but this year he's been spreading the love as much as he can. He leads the team as much as he can. I mean, he's the guy for them. He wins them games. The record shows it. I would have picked Jason or Jacob if I haven't watched the moments that Brady's had this season. I mean, he's done it in the in crunch time. It's come down to Brady. He's beat big teams. He's beat small teams. He's done it all. I think I'd have to go Brady, Jason, Jacob. I like Jacob, but like Nick says, Jason's just had some out of this world performances this year. The record might not show it, but he plays on another level. And, I mean, when it comes down to putting a team on his back, 55 points is a lot of points. I mean, so.
Yeah, funny enough, we're going to have 3 different winners. I'm going to go with my teammate, Jacob Tomaszewski. I'll start from the bottom, though. Number 3 for me is actually going to be Jay Sapp. I mean, he's on the worst team out of the 3. And yeah, while he has had that MVP performance with that 55-point game, it was in a loss. I mean, we got to remember that. And winning's what is the name of the game. So, I mean, while he's averaging 30.1 points per game, which slightly edges out a guy like Jacob, he doesn't compare in terms of rebounds, and I don't think he compares at all defensively. So I put Jay Sapp at my 3. I'm going to put Pooh at my 2, and I think he is extremely valuable to that Ohio State roster. I think without Jacob, the Buckeyes are without a doubt a bottom team in the league. So yeah, in terms of value, and I mean I might even go as far as say that he is the most valuable. But the MVP for me is going to go to Jacob. He's the best player on the best team. He has the stats to prove it. He's been great defensively this year. He's just really been doing it all. There's a reason, I went out this offseason and targeted Jacob. I had to make the visits to his house, really convince him that the Saints was the way to go. But for me, it kind of does remind me of this year's MVP race. We got. No, never mind. I'm wrong. But anyways, no, it does. No, last year's MVP race. Pooh, he's kind of giving off Joel Embiid vibes. He's putting up the stats, putting up the numbers. But Jacob, I mean, he's Jokic. He's the best player on the best team. He always gets it done. And then Jay Sapp, kind of a little Shea Gilgeous-Alexander to him. But besides the point, give me Tomaszewski to win MVP. We're going to head over to playoffs now. One thing I just want to start with is who's a team or a player, you could focus on either, that you think needs to win a championship the most? Whose legacy would it affect the most and impact most greatly?
I'd have to say Jay Sapp. You're probably going to take Jacob for a 2-peat, but Jay Sapp bounced from the finals last year in a very decisive blowout against that just stacked Orangemen. If he wins MVP, it would definitely cement him as a great. Maybe I'll take the Panthers as a whole, because that team is running it back from last season. And then you have me, who's been bounced in quite fashionable times. My sophomore year, the big three-pointer buzzer beater from Joe Lorenzo. That was tough to watch. And then last year, obviously bounced in the playoffs, or bounced in the finals. But overall, I think the Panthers, that team, and Jay Sapp in particular, would cement him as a great.
Man, I feel like there's so many. I think there's a lot of seniors this season that have a lot to prove that they were that good. I think you could take Dylan, you could take Jason, you could take Brady, you could take any of them. I mean, this is the first year where they are the top guys. Any of them could win it. I mean, Skylar's on the team with a bunch of talent. That's the first seed. And I mean, the question is Skylar the guy that needs to step up in the off season? I mean, who knows if Burb's coming back? I feel like any senior that is a star on a team that is in contention, or not technically in contention, I think any of them need to step up in this postseason. I mean, this is going to be one of the most memorable of all time. I think this is a high for the league. If I would say one person has got the most pressure, I would agree with Nick. It's either Jason or it's Brady. Both are all-time legends in this league. You could even say the same about Dylan Getter. But we know that those three, at least, have enough talent that they should have won at least once along the way. And if they don't win this year, it'll be one of the biggest what-ifs. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with that in terms of senior players. The way Pooh, Getter, and Sapienza lost that championship last year, they all split up, all chose their own teams. One of them winning that would really solidify themselves up high in that Clifton Park rec GOAT list. But looking away from the seniors, I actually am going to go back to this Siena Saints roster, you know? First you got a guy like Jacob who won on the orange last year, makes the switch away from Frank to come join the Saints after winning Rookie of the Year last year, and now it looks like he might win MVP. I mean, if this guy were to go on and win a championship, you're looking at a guy that could go down as the rec GOAT, depending on what he does next year. Is that, I don't know if that's far-fetched to say, but if this guy 2 years in is a one-time MVP winner, a one-time Rookie of the Year winner, and has 2 rings, I think year 3 is subject for him to do something that no one's ever done before. Then I'll give some love to the kid, Teddy Tidwell. A lot of people might not remember, he won the 8-9s championship last year, and had a lot of pressure, coming up to play with the big boys. But, he's really shown that, and I think winning at this higher level, seeing that Coach Tidwell, having been on that, coach of that 8-9 team, winning at both levels, is something that you don't see a lot, and going back-to-back would be quite impressive, even though they are at different levels and different competition. And then, of course, I'm due for a championship. I've lost again. Losing to Syracuse last year hurt. Never even made it to a championship since playing rec in 3rd grade. So there's a lot on the line for me. And for Ryan Barrington, he's a guy that was the Tar Heels. They reconstructed their whole team, but what guy didn't they grab? They didn't grab Barrington. He was left off. For him, it's something personal to go and show them this whole season that it was a miss to not draft him. So overall, as a team, I'll go with the Saints. But yeah, individual player-wise, one of those 3 seniors has so much to prove by winning a championship. We do have our official matchups to get things started. We had a couple tiebreakers, of course, for the 1 seed. Orange men get it over the Saints, who did head-to-head. But then this Saturday, you'll have Team 6 versus Team 10, and Team 9 versus Team 2 for your playoff game, playing games. That's the Bruins and Danes as one, and then Devils and Panthers as the other.
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
So
I'm just writing it down.
I'm gonna look into the. I'll do the Bruins and the Danes first, being the more interesting game, I guess. Oh, I don't know, but I'm gonna take the underdogs there. Even though the Bruins have had just an absolute pitiful season. I mean, bottom of the barrel abomination, bag of chips, worthy, you could say. I think they can get it done. I think they can get it done. You have John Thompson as your big. You have a lot of scorers. Anthony Gagnon has had a tremendous season. I feel like he should be nominated for an award, but just a tremendous season. And then you have some other scorers too. Zammy, the sophomore, he can shoot the lights out, really. When he's on, he's on. But I think the Bruins could get it done. See, the problem with the Danes is it's really only Getter. I know Jackson Duncan has had a couple of good weeks in the last couple regular season weeks, but when we saw Getter injured, they could not win at all. I think they were winless without that big sleaziest triple-double game. But with Getter, he's going to take all the shots, of course. So if you guard him, you're really, and if you shut him down, you're really gonna go ahead. What do you think, guys?
I'm on the Bruins, and I'm confident in the team that I have here. I think if we got the right guys on the court, putting the right amount of effort, which we know they have, it's a winnable game. I'm not gonna say we're gonna win, but I think it's one of the more winnable games we've had this season. We played them before; it was close. I think we got Griffin back this week. He wasn't there last week. It's a big deal for them, for us. I mean, when this team plays together as one unit, I think the chemistry is almost unbeaten. They trust each other enough to win these games. They know they can do it eventually. It's just they have to do it all at once. And they've been writing this game in the pencil for weeks now. They know that this is the one that could define the season. The rest of these games wouldn't matter if they win this one. So I'm also going to take the Bruins. I think the underdog story is there. I think they've got the team to back it up. They've been close all year. I think this is the moment.
Yeah, and I agree. The Bruins are not nearly as bad as their record shows they are. They've really hung around with some great teams. They almost beat my Saints. Really gave us a scare. They're a good team. They have talent. They have a lot of seniors that are going to want to show up for their last playoff performance, and I think that zone does have the ability to split out almost any team in the league. But I have a quick story. In 5th grade rec, I remember I made it to the semifinals, closest I've ever gotten. And while I was up 2, maybe up 1, I don't know if they count threes, up 1 with 5 seconds left, I'll always remember Dylan Getter draining a 3 from half court to win the game. His playoff instinct is unmatched, and I can't go against it here in the first round. Where there's a Getter, there's a way, and for that reason, give me the Danes moving on. But I do see why you guys side with the Bruins. And then real quick, just give me your pick for Devils Panthers.
So this game is really interesting. I've heard Brady and Ben are not going to be there, including D'Souza, for the same reason they all have other, I guess, more important sports than rec basketball. But anyway, the very first game of the season involved just a Vinny team versus almost a full Panthers team. I don't remember if Ari was there, but we'll talk about Ari in a sec, actually. But this game went to OT and it was very close. I think Goldman had about 35 to 40 points on the Panthers' head, with his main matchup being Alex. So to dive deep into this, it's almost the same thing with the Danes, that Vinny is going to be their main scorer. Okay, he's going to shoot every shot he can, and he's gonna try and get in as much as he can. Grant Crisanda also has had a tremendous game, so Vinny might trust him a little more and might give him more chances to score. But I think if you beat Vinny to his spot every time, you can really shut him down. I think that's what Alex is going to try and look for. The Panthers have really been struggling. I mean, we dropped too many games in the last stretch. I don't even know why we're here. I don't know why we don't have a bye, but we're here, okay? And I think they're ready. J-Sap obviously wants to run it back. MVP performance. Ferguson, great three-point maker. Can drive in, can get the buckets done. But this team is kind of lacking. ESAP has not been great, struggling with some confidence issues. I know he had a week-long injury he's been dealing with. I think it was his knee, but he hasn't been to his full performance. JSAP and Alex are definitely going to take most of the shots, and this is where Ari comes in. Ari versus the last Blue Devils matchup in the new set of games played like absolute garbage. I personally wasn't there. I had some personal things that need to be attended to, but looking at the stats, he played like absolute garbage, and he hasn't been there for the last couple of weeks, and maybe the burden's on him, but I think he can come back this week, and I think he can really get the job done and help the Panthers win. He's a very good three-point shooter when he's on, and I mean he can really get to the basket and drive and score. What do you guys think?
You know, the way I see this matchup is it's going to come down to two players at the end of the day, the superstars, Vincent versus Jason. And I love Vinny, but he's not the same Vinny I watched last year. Last year, Vinny shot nearly 60%. This year, he's shooting just around 45, I believe. So it's a big dip. And I mean, I don't know, is this team ready? I mean, they're going to be without Kaiser, too, reportedly. So without that support, does he have it in him to do it by himself? He's got guys like Abdu, you said Grant, great players, but I mean, they're going to be matched up against Ethan and Alex. Are they really ready for those kind of matchups? I mean, Nick, even yourself, I would say, give yourself some credit. I mean, they don't have a player coming off the bench that is even, respectfully, Nick's level. I mean, That's their team is just. I mean, they were one of those situations where their draft situation might not have been the greatest due to some of the friend picks and stuff. But I mean, I just don't know. I see Jason, and I know he can get the job done. I see Vinny, and we've had questions throughout the season. He's had some pretty low lows. I mean, a couple games where he barely got up in double digits. So I would take the Panthers in this one. I would take Jason. I mean, we've watched the past few weeks. He's going to score. I mean, do they have somebody that's going to score as much? So.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with you guys here. I'm gonna go with the Blue Devil. With the Panthers, excuse me. Well, I do agree. Yeah, Goldman's got the least. You can't defend his shot. He always gets it off with that turnaround fade. And yes, it has been more efficient this year. But I'm less efficient this year. But it really just comes down to me questioning his heart. I feel like he doesn't care at the same level that Sapienza will, and the rest of the guys on the Panthers roster. He said it directly. He's here for the cardio, and come playoff time, that's not going to cut it. So I think Vinny's a great player. Definitely left his mark on this league. He plays like Durant, but I'd say he's more of a LaMelo Ball. He's never been a true winner. And for that reason, I'm going to have to go with the Panthers. All right, last thing I'm going to ask for you guys in today's episode is just give me your championship game prediction. You can even throw in your winner if you want, but what do you guys see happening this March?
I don't know the different sides of the bracket yet. I haven't really looked. But I might have to go Saints Huskies. We've seen Frank get bounced. I know my sophomore year, we bounced him. I know last year he's obviously coming off that finals win by a big margin. But I mean, we've just seen it. He just got
bounced. Saints would play Huskies and Saints would play Huskies in semis, and then the other side would have the Tar Heels, Orange, and Buckeyes.
Okay, maybe I'll go. Maybe I'll go Saints. Orange then. The two big seeds. I think the Huskies they definitely have their bad games. They definitely have the stars though to fight, but I think the Saints can get it done over there. Looking at the other side of the bracket, the Orange Men and the Tar Heels. We haven't really talked about the Tar Heels, but the Tar Heels are one of those teams that they're big. They'll get every board over you. They'll get every putback over you, and that's kind of been their mentality over the past couple of years. Obviously, Coach Pepper just screaming rebounds whenever the ball goes up in any scenario. Always giving it to her players, and she's honestly a great coach, and I would love to see her be an honorable mention for Coach of the Year. But I think the inside presence of Eli can really shut down this Tar Heels offense. The problem with the Orange Men zone is if you drive in and you pull that center, that Eli that's just sitting in the paint, and you have someone sit on it's an open close shot every time. So I don't know if the Tar Heels will be able to do that, but we'll find out.
I've watched almost every game this season of every team. I think I've gotten to see each team's best and worst throughout the whole season. And this might surprise some people, but I'm gonna pick a play-in team. And Nick, I'm gonna pick your team. And I have a reason. I've watched a certain player on your team, the MVP candidate Jason, play phenomenal games against these big teams. And I mean, you're talking about the Orangemen who have been great this season, but I think they've been able to hold it close enough that when it comes playoff time and Jason is presented with the fact that it's a ring, it's winning time, it's that Magic Johnson mentality with the Lakers, right? I think when it's in front of him, you're going to see a whole new player, kind of like we always talk about Dylan Getter in the playoffs. I think when there's the trophy right there and the team is at his hands and he knows it's his fate, I put it all in on Jason Sapienza. I think the Saints have a great team too. I think the Huskies got a good shot, but I mean, I'd be willing to gamble that Jason is going to make at least a semifinals run at minimum. So I'd take the Panthers for my chip winner this year.
Yeah, well, I do hear what you're saying. I do think the Panthers got a really good shot at getting past the Orange. I'll go with my championship as the Saints and the Buckeyes. In terms of the Saints, I think us versus the Huskies, if that happens in the semifinals, which in all likelihood would, that's going to be a phenomenal game. The regular season kind of disappointed the Huskies without Heptig. And the Saints just kind of came on fire and we got out to a quick lead. But I think in the playoffs, you get Terry coaching against Bidwell. You got so many stars on the court: Heptig, Terry, Regazzo, Bean, and then you got Chef, Teddy, Barrington, Brett, Kyler Seagrove, and it's just there's so much to happen on the court. So I think that's going to be a really good matchup on the left side of the bracket. And on the right, I do think I could see Sapienza getting past the Orange, but I think if they match, I do think the Buckeyes will beat the Tar Heels for the reason that the Tar Heels are always in foul trouble come playoff time. You see the refs crack down on them a little more, and that team is just too physical and gets them in trouble late game. I mean, that was how they lost to my Saints last year, picking up a technical with 20 seconds to go when they had the lead is what cost them the game. And then when it comes to Buckeyes, either playing the Orange or the Panthers, I'm going to say Brady Plouvin's ready for his legacy performance to will their way to victory, get them to that championship game. Set up Saints Buckeyes. They went 1-1 against each other in the regular season. You're going to have another great coaching matchup. Both guys may be coaching their last games. I'm not going to speak on Coach Pod's future, but it could be. I'll let people know that this could be the end of the Coach Tidwell era, and it very well be the end of Coach Plouvin era as Brady departs. But anything you guys else want to add before we sign off for today?
The bracket as a whole is very interesting. I know coming into this year, we've all thought, wow, these teams have they've been pretty well-rounded, I would say. There's not many good teams, but looking into it, obviously there's some bad teams, but they're not that bad. I know the Bruins have tendency issues, and then you look at the Saints, they've just been playing, out of their minds with Jacob, and this season has just been really great, I would say, with a lot of great moments, and come playoffs, I think these two playing games are looking to be very, very well fought, and tensions are very high.
I agree with Nick here. I think this is by far one of my favorite seasons as not only a player but even a spectator. I mean, the intensity, the rivalries, the matchups, there's a lot on the line for everybody this year. And we knew at the start of the season, I think it was said a bunch, the door was wide open. Anybody could win. No matter the record going into the playoffs because of the system and how it works, we knew that anybody had a real shot as long as they were ready to fight come playoff time. And I think we're going to see some underdogs win some big games. I don't know how deep some of these teams will go, but I mean, I think we're going to see a Cinderella story, at least one somewhere. I think these teams are ready. I think these seniors are going to put on the main show this year. And I think it's going to be one of the best playoffs we've ever watched.
Yeah, this senior class is definitely one to highlight. And it's so different from last year when you had a team like the Orange Men. It was everyone knew they were going to win. But yeah, so many guys with so much to prove this year. Seniors really dispersed out on a bunch of different teams. But yeah, it's definitely shaping up to be an exciting March. Maybe we'll get something quick out next week, depending on how these games go. Maybe we'll do a awards release live on the show, but we'll see. We'll post on the Instagram to let you guys know. But thank you guys so much for watching. Nick, Ben, thank you so much for joining me today. And yeah, make sure to stay tuned.
Thank you.